In the challenge around functions, we asked you to create a function that accepts two numbers and adds them together. We can output that information to the screen as well. When we create functions, they exist within classes. So what I'm going to do is go to the end curly brace of my main method and press enter a couple times just to provide some white space here. I'm going to create a function that doesn't return any values and simply adds two numbers that get passed into it. Because we're going to call it from a static method, which is main, this method should also have the static modifier in front of it. We said it won't return any values back, so therefore we will use the void keyword. And because we're going to add two numbers together, we essentially want to use a name that is explanatory for our function. Now, because we're adding two numbers together, we can simply use the name sum, which would make sense for a summation of two numbers. Opening up our parentheses for our function means that we now have the opportunity to include placeholders, which we know are actually known as arguments for the function. And we're going to pass in two numbers, and we want integer values for this one here, so we'll just deal with whole numbers. So I'm going to call this int num1, and again, you can call these variables whatever you decide to call them for the arguments that you'll pass in. I'm just using num1 and num2 as a way of knowing that I'm passing in one number and a second number here. The key is making sure you're using the appropriate data types at the beginning of each one of your variables that you pass into the function. Pressing enter at the end of our parentheses and then opening a curly brace sets up the body of our sum method. Now within the method we said that we wanted to add the two numbers together, assign the value to another variable which is the sum, and then output that to the console window. So we will declare a new variable called sum, which will hold the summation or the value of adding the two numbers together. Using the assignment operator, we will say we want to assign the value of num1 plus num2, and the plus symbol is the mathematical addition symbol. And this simple assignment statement will work from right to left. It will assign the sum of num1 and num2 to a new variable called sum. And then we use our by now familiar console.writeLine to output sum to the console window. Remember, use your semicolons at the end of your statements. Now by itself, sum doesn't do anything because we haven't called it yet. We come back up to our main method, create some white space, and simply call the sum method. When we type in the word sum and open the parentheses, Visual Studio knows that the signature of sum is looking for two integer values. So here's where we provide those values. We'll simply input what are known as literal constants, 32, and say 45 as an example. Press end to get to the end of our statement and put our semicolon in. And now our code is complete. And as we press Control F5, our application runs and prints out 77 to the console window, which is the sum of the two numbers that we entered.